conservationist before becoming a district conservationist in Oklahoma for 6 years. He served as the assistant state conservationist in Illinois for 7 years. And Troy also has served in the national headquarters on the initiatives team and as acting national EQIP team leader. Prior to accepting the position of Minnesota State Conservationist last year, Troy worked as, and my phone just, sorry about that, Troy worked as the State Financial Assistance Program Manager for Texas. One thing that I have really appreciated about Troy and Kristen Brennan and Carissa Spencer and the folks, and Anne Marie, the folks at NRCS, is their support of grassroots education and boots on the ground to teach soil health, and particularly with Troy, his support of integrating livestock on the landscape as a tool to really achieve more soil health goals. So I'm very pleased to welcome Troy.
Kristen gave me a script. I'm going to put the script right here with Kent. Thanks, Teresa, Connie, Kent, the whole group. Glad to be here. It's kind of funny, Thom and I speak quite a few things together, and I never know if he's going to do a PowerPoint. It kind of works out. Usually he does a PowerPoint and I don't. And then sometimes I do a PowerPoint and he does. So it kind of tag teams. So I'm going to compliment a little bit. Number one, thanks for allowing me, inviting me to be here. Apologize for my voice. I do not apologize for my accent, if you think I have one. I can't get rid of it. I've had it for 50 years. So now you know how I am. I want to say, to kind of tag on a little bit about what Thom mentioned, the Ag Water Quality Certainty Program and that certification program is a little bit more amped up this coming year. We were glad, I think, actually before Thom got in office, I met with his staff and the previous commissioner, and they said, what do you want to do with the Water Quality Certainty Program? Because that was kind of a big part of NRCS, played a huge part of that under one of my predecessors. And I said, we need to do more, not just more water quality, but we need to be soil health advocates. We need to do something for soil health. We need to do something for wildlife. We're big on natural resources. So we cover the whole gamut: soil, water, air, plants, animals, and humans, economics. So I was really glad, Thom and his staff were receptive and they amped it up, and we're excited because I think whether it means certainty or not, or avoiding regulation, I think that's irrelevant. I think of more relevancy for farmers. How many are farmers here? Let me scan this. So we're not all acronyms. That's good. I'm an acronym and a farmer, rancher, but I think it's imperative that states, regions, the farm community start bragging a little bit about what we do, because I think there's a lot of people doing good things out there, and this program helps accentuate that. It lets people know that we've got people like John and others who are doing the right thing, they're doing innovative things, they're doing cool things on the ground that they can brag about. And I think later, you'll hear me talk about this until I leave here in a few years. But I think in Minnesota we have a huge opportunity to move it to the next level and start talking about ecosystem services again and market-driven systems again. I know that's come up in my lifetime. It's kind of here and here and here. I think we have the greatest opportunity right now. We just have all the cards are aligned. So if you hear me talk at other places, you'll probably hear me talk about that. So I'm going to get back on script. Wait one quick. So a plug. I'm going to put a plug in. We currently have the Conservation Stewardship Program that's lining out in this coming month, March. Sign up is now. Sign up is actually year-round. And the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. Both of those are programs that help people become water quality certified. They help people implement soil health practices. They help take the edge off some of the change that farmers have to go through, the expense and quite frankly, the risk and the worry. It kind of takes the edge off if you have a little bit of financial assistance. But I think more importantly to me, and I know Teresa wanted me to mention something about EQIP, for me it's technical assistance. That's probably the most valuable thing our agency, our partners across the state of Minnesota have to offer is, and we don't have enough people, I'll tell you that. We don't have enough people. Teresa doesn't have enough people. The Soil Health Coalition doesn't have enough people. We need armies of people to promote soil health, because you can't just educate, you have to hold their hand, and you have to walk them through it, because quite often, if you're my dad, that's a huge change. But Dad saw a lead plant a few years ago, hadn't seen it in his entire life on our property. That's a cool thing. It doesn't mean much to some of you in the room, it means a lot to me. So, now I'll get back on script. All right. Got excited. So, just a few things that Kristen, thank you for preparing this, she's a rock star. But a few things that we wanted to point out this past year that NRCS had a big part in of accomplishments. One of them is we had over 100 NRCS and partner employees at 4 locations receive training on soil health and all 5 principles of soil health, not just one. All 5 principles of soil health. Those are some photos of some of that that's going on this year. We're going to have more training in 2020. I don't know if you put how many, but we're going to offer some this summer, some training. So tune in, and we share what we can with all of our acronym partners in the room. So if you don't tune in to what's going on with NRCS, tune in with what's going on with Soil Health Coalition, SFA, and others, because we'll get the word out. There'll be training opportunities for you or your neighbors. Bring a neighbor. Farmers to farmers works better than agency people. So, we had scholarships between us, Bowser, Board of Water and Soil Resources, and Lodge, Minnesota Office of Soil Health. We actually had $500 scholarships this year. I haven't told my staff this, but I talked to Grant and Dawn a few times recently. We're going to have to amp that up. There's a lot of producers that could be a barrier for them, to go to a training. Number one, drive somewhere, because it may not be in their backyard. So we're going to have to amp up the potential for scholarships to these type of trainings, and I'm committed to do that, and we're going to work on it. So let me go to this. This was the cool part of the year. Up in the corner, you'll see something that happened this summer that Tom referred to, the Soil Health Coalition kickoff. Look at all those sponsors. So that's why I'm saying the timing is right. There's a lot of people excited. And you cook while the iron is hot, right? So, we'll move on. If you guys want to get on with the educational part of this day, not just me. All right, we have some projects around the state. That's skip. I think I skipped. Let me go back. I skipped too fast. There we go. Where is the tour? An open farm. There it is. That's a big group. I went on that tour. Past 3 years, I think, Minnesota, NRCS, and our partners have hosted a soil health tour. This year, I think we're going to South Dakota. I say we. I don't want to take a spot on the bus if it bumps a farmer off. That was my big worry last year. I want to go. I was like a little kid. I really wanted to go, but I didn't want to bump a farmer off of it. So we worked it out. I went. Jerry Dones, a friend of mine, was one of the key people on that tour. That is a really cool operation over in North Dakota. They do some awesome things with cattle, wildlife habitat, soil health. It was everyone on that bus just about sent me emails and information about their property, come see me. It was exciting. So we did some soil health tours. We're going to do more. I think we will keep doing them. As long as my budget holds, we will do it. So, let me move on. I didn't talk about the fair, but we do have a presence at the fair every year. A lot of kids go through. I thought thousands of kids go through there. They love the soil health tunnel. They like to get their hands in the dirt. It's fun. So it's a good way to educate kids. We're pretty proud of that. I know my staff loves it. I mean, we can go to the fair, right? It's pretty cool. So, I talked about the coalition a little bit. What impressed me, and we helped fund, we're not the sole funders, saw that whole gamut of people that helped sponsor the kickoff of that Soil Health Coalition. What's cool about that, much like SFA, is it's producer oriented, producer driven. It's not a top down, it's not an agency thing, it's not a large corporation necessarily that's driving it. It's farmer to farmer, rancher to rancher, teaching each other, mentoring their neighbors on how to implement soil health practices on their property. What's really cool is I see these guys everywhere, and they're doing it free. I mean, nobody's paying them. They care about this, they're passionate, and they show up. And that's a lot. There's not a lot of people willing to do that. So, let me move on. There are some Soil Health Coalition members, probably about a dozen maybe here today. I'm looking around, I'm seeing people. So, if you don't know one, meet one. It's an exciting opportunity. Teresa and I'll be blunt about this. We visited like a year ago, and we're trying to figure out how do we get all our cats together. You know, we got a lot of cats with soil health partnerships here. We got cats moving. Let's just herd the cats. Let's all move in the same direction. Minnesota's a big freaking state. There's a lot of people. So we can't just do it alone. One organization's not going to do it. The Office of Soil Health was started. Anna Gates is maybe not. If she was here, she would make fun of my accent. So she says it's soil, it's not soul. So anyway, they all play a part. All of us play a part in advocating and changing the world we live in. And soil health is going to have to be a big part of that. So we did some field trials, or my folks did some field trials, assessing 5 years, comparing peat fall tillage and no cover crop versus cover crop. That's kind of the synopsis of it. I think the big thing for me, you see a lot of bare ground in Minnesota, a lot of bare ground. So we're never going to get where we need to be with nitrates and all these other issues if we don't help solve that problem. That's a big, big problem. It's a challenge, and we have challenging soils to work with. So it's not that I'm saying farmers are doing the wrong thing. It's a challenge. So challenges and opportunities. But I think working together, we can help find solutions that one size won't fit all. We can do cool things, and these type of demo projects, hopefully we can do more. I'll put another plug in. We're going to have a competitive grant offering again this year, hopefully by the end of March. Hope my staff gets that together. So hopefully we get that thing together. It'll have a list of items in there. Part of it is maybe helping do some demonstration type projects across the state. So I think demos are good. When I was a kid, there was a demo on every corner. Texas A&M Extension had them everywhere. Their funding went downhill. I miss that because it was a close way right in your neck of the woods to go see real live things going on the farm. So hopefully we can help fund that as long as our funding goes out. Let me go to this is what I want. So they said, what kind of picture do you want for your office, boss? I want a big red Angus picture. So that's what I got. And maps, I like a lot of maps. It's always good to know where you're at. One critical piece, you'll hear soil health talks all across the United States. Oh, 10 minutes. Does that mean I've got 10 minutes? Or, oh, wow. Okay. You're going to get tired of hearing from me. So one cool thing here in Minnesota is they do go with all 5 principles. Number 5. You'll go around the world, actually. You'll go to other countries, and they quite often have 3. Quite often, and more often than not across the U.S. This part here is just now catching on. I don't know why. As a range ecologist, I thought it should have been one of the first things. But, again, we've had a lot of talks about that. But keeping the soil cover, you're not going to solve the snurk problem without that. You're not going to solve a lot of problems without keeping the soil cover. Minimizing disturbance is critical. But the disturbance at the right time. For me, as an ecologist, everything's the right time, right place, right everything. Things just have to line up. So we control as much as we can, grant, but quite often we can't control everything. If you want to control something, tell me how to control the climate, because I don't think you can do that. If somebody could, they'd be ruling the world right now. But livestock is a critical piece. It's my goal, as I got here, my staff asked, What are some of the things you want to do? I went around and met producers, went to farms, went to cattle operations, went to dairies. I don't know how many I've been to, Tom, but again, I've been on the road a lot, and I love it. I love it because it refreshes me. I'm not an office guy. I love to wear jeans. So livestock is a critical piece of where I want to go with my funding, my technical assistance, and our partners that are in this room. We have so much opportunity. We have people that are just dabbling in livestock because they went to one of these educational opportunities. And they learned, and they said, the Olsons up in the Northwest, they're interested. I put them on the spot. I'm gonna get a tweet tonight, or actually an email that says, what the heck are you doing? So, but there's people interested that have never grown up in livestock. That's a big change. It would be just like me trying to become a cotton farmer. And my grandfather was a cotton farmer, but I don't even remember the last crop, really, that he planted, because he was a quick learner. That was not a good, sustainable system. So I wouldn't know where to begin. I could not grow avocados at all. But there's a lot of people that are a little bit scared of getting into the livestock, but they go to these conferences and they want to. So I'm committed to finding a way, and as soon as I get a grazing specialist hired, I've almost got a whole technical staff rehired at the state office. Almost, we're close. We got a wildlife biologist and a grazing specialist, we're close. We get those things in place. I really want to work with the acronyms in the room, the partners in our room, to really amp up the educational process that people have to go through, even if they just want to talk to a neighbor about like Kent and say, hey, can you bring some livestock over and integrate it into my crop system? I don't want to own them, but maybe you can bring them over and we'll work a deal. That's scary for people. If you've been just a corn bean farmer your whole life, that's scary territory, but we're not going to get where we need to be if we don't help them do that. So education is the key, and then holding our hands, because it's a little scary. So I've already I hit the 5 principles. Increase crop diversity, that's near and dear to a range guy's heart. Living roots in the soil. I think if you go out here, there's a display, and you can pull that cord and see how deep the roots go. Well, I talked about lead plant. I thought I was going to cry. My dad was kind of, my dad cries, yeah, that's a big deal. So, but when we saw lead plant reappear, and I talk about reappear 70 years later on our place, we don't have a huge place, but on the range side of it, where it's always been grass, that was a big deal. Because you go pull that cord, that's a deep root in the ground. So there's some lot of things that we've learned, that we know, that can work in 5 minutes. I'm agreeing. Go pull one of those cords, it's interesting. All right, forestry. Sealy Barnwell is here. She's our new forester for me in NRCS in Minnesota. I'm excited because there's a lot of interest in agroforestry, silviculture across the state, and there should be. My cousin's a permaculturist. She does run hogs in the woods, and it works. So there's a lot of interest in that. I just think, just like cattle, if you're not exposed to it, you don't understand it, you really need to get some help and make sure you do it right. Try to avoid some of the crashes and burns that have happened with people in the past. But Minnesota's got a lot of timber, and we got a lot of transition zone. We are a transition state between the prairies and the eastern side. So there's a lot of opportunity there. We're going to have a whole breakout session throughout the day. I'd encourage you to tag on to it if you're interested in agroforestry. Talked about Sealy, and Mike Hupp is up in Duluth. Is that the same one? All right, and look, there's cows in the woods. Who would have thought? So this is cool. So this isn't far from where I used to live, out in Oklahoma. So for our agency, we were a soil conservation service. We were the soil stabilization service originally, and Forest Service. Thank God we went over to USDA, but or separated. I still love, I've got signs all at the house that says Soil Conservation Service, because that's the root, that's the where we came from, right? And it's interesting that now we're back there. I talked about my grandfather. When I was a kid, he would talk about our neighbors being very progressive. I'm not talking politics. Nowadays that means a different thing. But in his day, it meant you were willing to experiment, you were willing to do some new things. And he would point, you know, the Becks are very progressive. There was a Czech family, I'm trying to think of the name, Bachlicek or something. They're all gone now, but he would point to them and say they're very progressive. I didn't know what he meant. But he was talking about what we're talking about here today. They put clover out. They overseeded their pastures with clover. They used cover crops. They were doing no-till when it wasn't even popular. But he would point to them and say, you know, we're going to have to do something. This is in the 80s. He said, we used to do this, and we got away from it. We're going to have to get back to it. But I think he would be blessed to hear that now we're talking about other things, sustainable, regeneration. Because, you know, he would constantly preach to me, you got to rebuild. Because we tore this place apart, our country. We have, nationwide. It's an opportunity to reset the trajectory. I think we can do the right thing, and the people in this room can make it happen. But I'll leave it at that. I hope you got something out of my talk, but we don't want to ever see this again. We do see this. Look at this. 2017 in Iowa. I grew up where they have haboots quite a bit, and it's not fun. That's probably why I have bronchitis more frequently than I should. But we can not have to go down that path. So I would encourage all of you to get something out of your day, take it home, apply it to your life, apply it to help your neighbors, apply it to theirs. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Next up is Aiden Read. Aiden is a graduate student at the University of Minnesota, and he was the principal researcher for soil health case studies. You will find them in your folder. Some of the farmers that are featured in the case studies are here today, so certainly reach out to them and learn more about their unique soil health journeys. As Aiden comes up, I wanted to just note that our choice of Oliver Kelley Farm this year was for two reasons. We wanted to rotate around the state and see what kind of different audience we'd get. And we also wanted the opportunity to try to locally source our food. And to the extent possible, we did that working with Elbows Aloud, they're our caterer, and our intern, Alex Shafani, made that possible working with Jerry. So I just want to give a hand to Elbows Aloud and Alex and Jerry. Please say thank you. All right, Aiden.
Thank you, Teresa. So I was asked to come and just do a brief introduction on these case studies you all should have received. So these are our second edition of the soil health case studies. And what this is basically attempting to capture the stories behind a couple of these innovative cooperators that we've been working with. And some of them are here today. So we hear a lot of, well, I guess we're all here today to take information, to exchange information, and discuss some of the innovations behind these soil health practices or principles. And something that we found is missing sometimes is the human element to that. And so what you'll find in here are 9 cooperators in this edition. Some of them are here today. And what we did is we attempted to capture some of their stories. So we collected some of the benefits they observed, some of the challenges they encountered, some of their motivations. And the purpose behind that is we wanted to provide a tool that other farmers and perhaps agency staff or educators can use as an outreach tool and as an educational tool. So this is the second edition of this. It was inspired by our Natural Resources Committee of the Southwest RSDP. I know I saw Gary Wyatt here as part of that committee. And I know that we're planning future editions of this as well. We'll perhaps focus on other regions of the state. And if you have any questions about what you see in here, I'd encourage you, I know several of the cooperators are here or presenting later today, so reach out to them. They're all fantastic resources and great storytellers. Also, if you have questions about the methodology or about this project, I'll be here the rest of the day as well, and be happy to talk about it. Thank you.
So good morning. Wow, what a great crowd. Thank you for coming out. This is our 7th time doing this. Hopefully we've got it down to a fine science now. A couple announcements at the break at 10 o'clock. We have members of the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition. Their mentor group is going to be offering their services, if you will, out by their table right out here on the back of the door. And the participants in that are listed on the back of your program. And I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And if one of their mentors is doing something that's of interest to you or something you want to try, this is your opportunity to talk to them. So I encourage you to do that at this break and then the other break in the afternoon. The other thing I want to point out is we have a group with us today. It's called Kiss the Ground. They're from California, and they're looking for cooperator farmers to possibly participate in a study and mentoring program that would be funded through their organization. We're still putting that on, but Kylie is here from Kiss the Ground. Is this thing being weird or getting feedback? From Kiss the Ground, and she is just outside and to the left there when you go out. So stop by if you're interested in being a part of that program, learn more about it from Kylie. So my job, in addition to making a few announcements, is to introduce our first keynote speaker today. And it's traditional, as you've already seen today, when introducing a speaker. Okay, do I need to go to the other one? Keep going? Okay, thank you. It's to use their prepared biography, but John, I'm going to take the liberty to go outside of that here, so because I think there's things that need to be said. I know all you can read, so you can read the formal one in the program there. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you today John Sticka. As most of you have been hanging around the soil health movement for a while, know it began not from decrees on high, but as a grassroots movement. This movement was fueled, as you've already heard today, by boots on the ground, field people working in collaboration with highly innovative farmers. John has been one of those people. With a love for the land, concern for farmers, keen observational skills, and an understanding of ecology, John was a pioneer in articulating and applying the principles we use today to guide soil regeneration. With humility and vision, John persisted when many told him that won't work here. With compassion and determination, John and his fellow pioneers persisted with learning from both their successes and failures, things researchers continue to scramble to quantify and understand. John has written a book, which he'll tell you more about in a few moments, summarizing what he learned throughout his NRCS career. I encourage you not only to get a copy and read it, but share it with someone else. John, your vision and work has swelled to a growing number of people. This is the 2nd year in a row this summit is sold out. We are but a small part of this greater movement. Thank you for all you've done. It's our intent to carry this work forward. Please help me thank and welcome John Sticka.